I was reborn on the day Landon Pierce was drugged. But this time, instead of becoming his antidote, I dialed the number of the woman he truly loved. Lydia. In my previous life, I had fallen in love with Landon, the man who raised me. When I found out he had been drugged, he begged me, desperately, to call Lydia. But I didn't. I ignored his pleas and stayed by his side. That night, I became his antidote. A month later, I discovered I was pregnant. Landon was forced to marry me, but on the day of our wedding, Lydia, his beloved, was kidnapped overseas. She tried to call him 199 times, begging for help. Landon, too busy preparing for our wedding, didn't answer a single call. After her death, he sat in silence, staring at those missed calls. He didn't say a word. And when I went into labor, he locked me in the basement. I begged him to take me to the hospital. I cried, screamed, pleaded. But he just smiled coldly, watching me suffer as I struggled to give birth. Just before I died, I heard him whisper, "If you hadn't gotten pregnant, I wouldn't have been forced to marry you. If you hadn't taken her place, I would have answered Lydia's calls. You deserve to die." When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day Landon was drugged. "Mera, hurry up and call Lydia!" he shouted, his face flushed, eyes burning with desperation. This time I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my phone and dialed Lydia's number. In my past life, that look in his eyes had broken my resolve. It led me down a path of tragedy. But not this time. I turned away from his gaze and quickly left the room. "Landon, hold on. Lydia will be here in 10 minutes, I said, closing the door behind me. I heard him mutter my name through clenched teeth, but I ignored him, standing guard outside. 10 minutes later, Lydia arrived. She glanced at me, relieved I was unharmed. Without a word, she brushed past me and entered Landon's room. "You can leave now. We don't need you here," she said sharply. I turned and walked upstairs. That night, the house finally fell silent. I exhaled deeply. In my past life, my love for Landon had driven me to become his antidote. I bore his child, believing it would bring us closer. Instead, he married me out of obligation. On our wedding day, Lydia died, and Landon lost the love of his life. He never forgave me. He endured in silence, until the day I went into labor. This time I made a different choice. I brought Lydia to be his cure, and soon I would disappear completely. The next morning, Lydia appeared at the family breakfast table. Landon took a bite of his sandwich and announced casually, "From now on, Lydia is my girlfriend. I'll marry her, so be nice to her." He glanced at me, pointing his fork. "Especially you. Don't cause any trouble." I nodded indifferently. Lydia smiled smugly. I stood, ready to leave. But then her voice trembled with fake sorrow. "Landon, does Mera not want me in the family? I know how important she is to you. If she doesn't like me, maybe I should leave." Tears fell from her eyes, her expression wounded and pitiful. Landon frowned, clearly irritated. "Mera, sit down and finish your breakfast." "I'm done," I replied coolly, already walking away. He snapped. "Sit down. Is this how I raised you, with no manners?" This time, I had no intention of being dragged into their drama. I turned, offering a polite smile. "I've really finished. You two enjoy your meal." I left the room, returning to the peace of my own space. But half an hour later, someone knocked. I opened the door, only to be met with Landon's intense, brooding eyes. I instinctively tried to shut the door, wanting to avoid any confrontation. But he was faster. He blocked the doorway with ease, raising a brow as his eyes studied me. "Avoiding me?" he asked, stepping closer. "Why?" His gaze narrowed. "Are you upset? Is it because of Lydia?" I shook my head quickly, trying to keep my tone even. "No, I'm not upset. I'm happy for you. You found someone you truly love." Landon's expression shifted, unreadable, skeptical, as if he didn't quite believe me. "Is that really how you feel?" he asked, his voice edged with suspicion. "Are you sure you're not just saying that?" He scoffed, letting out a short, bitter laugh. Mera, don't tell me you still have feelings for me. My heart stilled. You think I didn't notice the kiss you stole on your 18th birthday? He went on. You were drunk, but I noticed. And those love letters you used to write me, I read every single one. He gave a humorless chuckle. You thought you were being sneaky. But the way you looked at me, your eyes practically screamed it. You think no one noticed? Everyone could tell. He paused, and for a split second, I wondered if he would show mercy. But then his voice turned cold, cutting. Not confessing? Best decision you ever made, because if you had, I would have laughed in your face. He walked over to the desk, opened the bottom drawer, and pulled out a thick stack of old letters. My letters. He tossed them onto the floor like they were nothing, then stepped on them without hesitation. Mera, he said with a sneer, I've been raising you since you were 7 years old, and now you've developed feelings for me? Do you even realize how messed up that is? You knew I only ever loved Lydia, yet you still wrote those letters behind my back. Honestly, it's disgusting. He leaned in close, his voice low and mocking. I came here to tell you something. Yesterday I was drugged. And you were looking at me like you wanted to jump me. You thought you could be the antidote, didn't you? He let out a dry laugh. Lucky for both of us, you didn't go through with it. Because if you had, I would have been disgusted for the rest of my life. You're just not worth it. A sharp pain twisted in my chest. Even though I'd stopped loving him in this life, hearing those words still hurt. Deeply. After that, Landon warned me to stay away from him, to avoid Lydia misunderstanding anything. Then he slammed the door behind him. I didn't want to be a nuisance, so I decided to leave for a few days to take care of some overseas paperwork. I packed my things and left that night, on my own. I purposely returned late, almost 10 o'clock, hoping to avoid everyone. But the moment I stepped into my room, I knew something was wrong. My bed had been moved. Then I saw it, Lydia's social media update, a selfie of her lying on the bed, smiling smugly. $1 million mattress really is the best. I just mentioned I wasn't sleeping well, and he immediately replaced it. That's why it's so important to find a man who loves you. My chest tightened. She had taken the mattress Landon bought for me, the one he had custom made when my back injury flared up earlier this year. It had cost over $1 million. He used to be so thoughtful. He knew how to take care of me, especially after raising me from such a young age. He let me fall for him, and now stood on some moral high ground, acting like I had no right to feel anything for him in the first place. And there was Lydia, casually complaining about her sleep, and Landon immediately replaced my mattress for her, without a single word to me. When Landon heard me return, he appeared at the doorway, arms crossed, voice detached. Lydia has light sleep, he said flatly, as if that explained everything. I gave her your mattress, Landon said flatly. Your back's fine now. Doesn't matter which one you sleep on. I didn't even look up. I just nodded as if I couldn't care less. Landon frowned, watching me closely. Mera, you've suddenly become so reasonable I don't even know how to deal with it. What's going on with you lately? You used to throw a tantrum if I was even slightly nice to anyone else. Why aren't you reacting now? He narrowed his eyes. Are you planning something? If you mess with Lydia, I won't let you off easy. I finally looked up, meeting his glare. My voice was calm, almost emotionless. I'm not trying to mess with anyone. Honestly, I'd prefer if no one messed with me either. And didn't you always want me to be more sensible? Well, here I am. You should be happy. His jaw tightened. Fine, Mera. You really know how to be a pain. With that, he slammed the door and stormed downstairs. In the past, those words would have hurt. Now, I felt nothing. Whether he was angry or not didn't matter anymore. Soon I'd be gone. The days that followed were simple, predictable. Lydia made sure to flaunt her relationship with Landon at every turn, and he was still sulking at me, waiting for a reaction I no longer had any intention of giving. This time, I wasn't going to play the peacemaker. Then, 1 month later, Lydia made her grand announcement. She was pregnant. Landon was ecstatic, practically glowing. The house buzzed with wedding plans. The entire Pierce family swept up in celebration. This time, it was his beloved who carried his child. The irony was almost laughable. But I had already made up my mind. I finished my paperwork, finalized everything, and booked my flight out of the country, scheduled for the exact same day as their wedding. It didn't take long for Landon to corner me. Taking advantage of Lydia's absence, he barged into my room, his expression dark. He threw open his phone, pulling up an email and shoving it in front of me. "So you're using your parents' money now, huh?" he snapped. "My lawyer looked into it. It's the deposit for your trip abroad." "What? My wedding's got you so upset that you're running away?" There was a knot in my stomach, but his mocking tone made it easy to swallow. When I didn't answer, his voice dropped, growing colder. "Mera, how long are you going to drag this out? You've been giving me the cold shoulder for a month now. Were you planning to ignore me forever?" He stepped closer, his tone accusatory. "Ever since Lydia moved in, you've barely spoken to me. But she's the woman I love. If you really cared about me, you'd understand. You can't keep running from both of us. You think you'll be able to avoid us after we're married?" I shook my head. "Landon, you're mistaken. I've always seen you as a guardian, someone who raised me. I'm grateful for that, but that's all." He let out a dry laugh, like I just said the most ridiculous thing in the world. "Grateful?" he scoffed. "Mera, the whole world knows you've been in love with me for years. Who are you trying to fool? You really believe you don't love me?" He glanced at the desk, his smirk growing wider. "Look at all these gifts I gave you. You've kept every single one. And you're still going to stand there and say you don't have feelings for me?" He walked over, picking up the gifts one by one, inspecting them with exaggerated care before looking back at me. His voice turned sharp. "Put all this away. I'm marrying Lydia now. You need to stop clinging to these childish fantasies. We're not related by blood, but I will never fall for you." He paused, his tone softening just slightly, but the weight of his words didn't lessen. "Lydia is pregnant. I can't let her feel uncomfortable in this house. I have to think about my wife, my child." I nodded casually, tossing the items into a box. "I was planning to throw them out anyway," I said simply, "so this works out." Landon frowned. He clearly hadn't expected that. He stepped in front of me, his hand gripping my wrist as I reached for another gift. His grip tightened, just slightly, as he studied my face. His dark eyes searched for something. Anything that would prove I was lying, that I still loved him. But I just stared back, calm and unaffected. The frustration radiated off him like heat. His lips pressed into a thin line. Finally, he exhaled sharply. "Mera, stop acting like this," he muttered. His voice was low, strained. "This isn't you. You're not this indifferent." But I was, and soon I'd be gone. I gently pulled my wrist free, lowering my gaze as I continued packing the box, tossing in trinkets, jewelry, and letters that once held so much meaning. "People change," I said simply. "You should be happy about that." His jaw clenched, fingers curling into fists at his sides. "Happy?" he echoed, almost scoffing. "You're throwing everything away like it never meant anything, like I never meant anything." I stilled for a brief moment before resuming my task, my voice quiet but firm. "You never did." Silence filled the space between us, heavy, suffocating. Landon let out a short laugh, but there was no amusement in it. "You expect me to believe that? After everything? After the way you used to look at me?" He took a step closer, lowering his voice. "You worshipped me, Mera. You spent years loving me, chasing after me, dreaming about me. And now you want to pretend it was all nothing?" I finally looked up at him, my expression unreadable. "Yes," I said, my voice unwavering. "It was nothing." His face darkened, his body tensing like my words had physically struck him. For a long moment, he just stared, emotions flickering behind his eyes, too fast to catch. Then suddenly, he grabbed the box from my hands and dumped its contents onto the floor, scattering the gifts and letters across the carpet. "If it was nothing," he ground out, "then why did you keep all of it?" I let out a slow breath and stepped past him, kneeling down to gather the mess. "I don't know. I admitted, my tone calm, void of the bitterness that once consumed me. Maybe I was holding on to a version of myself that doesn't exist anymore. Landon didn't move. He just stood there watching me, his breathing slightly uneven. "You're lying," he finally said, voice quieter this time, almost hesitant. "You still love me." I shook my head, offering a small, sad smile. "I don't." His expression flickered, just for a second, but it was enough. Doubt, confusion. Something close to anger, but not quite. He hated this, hated that I was slipping away. And for the first time, I understood. It wasn't because he loved me. It was because he had always expected me to be there. The girl who adored him unconditionally, no matter how cruel he was, no matter how much he ignored her. She had always waited, always stayed, but she was gone now, and he didn't know what to do with the silence she left behind. He took another step forward, his voice barely above a whisper. "Then why are you running away?" "I'm not running," I said softly. "I'm leaving." His jaw ticked, his fingers twitched at his sides. "You won't," he said, more to himself than to me. "You've never been able to leave me." I held his gaze, heart steady, mind clear. "Watch me." Something in his expression cracked, just for a moment, before he masked it with indifference. He let out a small, humorless laugh and shook his head. "Fine," he muttered, stepping back. "Leave. Go ahead. Pretend like this is what you really want." He turned toward the door but paused, glancing over his shoulder. "But remember this, Mera. No matter how far you run, no matter how hard you try to forget me, you never will." With that, he walked out, leaving me alone with the scattered remnants of a love that had long since died. The door slammed behind him, but the echo of his words lingered, pressing down on me like a weight I refused to carry any longer. "No matter how far you run, you never will." He was wrong. I would forget. I would move on. I would leave, and I would never look back. I inhaled deeply, forcing my hands to steady as I gathered the scattered gifts and letters one final time, shoving them back into the box with a detached efficiency that felt foreign, yet liberating. I wasn't that girl anymore. The one who clung to every scrap of affection Landon threw her way. The one who believed in something that had never been real. By the time I finished packing, the weight in my chest had lightened, replaced by a quiet certainty. This would be the last time I allowed him to affect me. I taped the box shut, determined to leave it behind like the final remnants of a past life I had no intention of reliving. The next morning, I finalized my departure plans. My flight was booked, my bags were packed, and there was nothing tying me to this place anymore. Or so I thought. Just as I was about to leave the house, Lydia appeared in the hallway. Her arms were crossed over her growing belly, a smug smile curving her lips. "Running away, are we?" she mused, her voice dripping with satisfaction. I suppose I shouldn't be surprised. It must be humiliating, watching me have everything you always wanted. I met her gaze calmly, refusing to give her the reaction she clearly craved. "I don't want anything that belongs to you, Lydia." Her eyes narrowed slightly at my indifference. "Really? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're still pathetically clinging to Landon's attention. He told me about your little conversation yesterday, about how desperate you were to convince him you've moved on." She tilted her head, feigning concern. "But let's be honest, Mera, we both know you haven't." I let out a quiet sigh and shook my head. "Believe whatever you want, Lydia. It doesn't change anything." I moved to step past her, but she shifted, blocking my path. "You're not going anywhere." I frowned, my patience thinning. "Lydia, move." "No," she snapped, her voice sharper now. "Not until you admit it. Admit that you're running away because you still love him. Because you can't stand to see him happy with me." I stared at her for a long moment, then exhaled slowly. "You want me to admit something? Fine. I admit that I was once a fool who wasted years loving a man who never saw me as anything more than an afterthought. I admit that I let myself believe I could matter to him, even when he made it clear I never did. And I admit that I should have walked away a long time ago. But I don't love him anymore, Lydia. I don't care who he marries, and I don't care what you think of me. The only thing I care about is leaving this place and never looking back." Her expression flickered, uncertainty flashing across her face before she quickly masked it with anger. "Liar," she spat, her nails digging into her arms. "You're a liar, Mera. And you know what? It doesn't matter, because no matter how much you try to convince yourself otherwise, you'll always be the girl who wanted what she could never have. And even if you do leave, you'll always wonder, what if?" Her words didn't cut me the way she hoped. If anything, they only solidified my resolve. I smiled faintly, shaking my head. "No, Lydia, I won't." And with that, I stepped around her, leaving her fuming in silence in the hallway. The drive to the airport was uneventful. The city blurred past me in a haze of memories, but I refused to let nostalgia creep in. This wasn't my home anymore. It never had been. As I stepped into the terminal, a strange sense of peace settled over me. This was it, the beginning of something new, the end of a chapter I had been trapped in for far too long. I checked in my luggage, made my way through security, and finally, as I sat by the gate waiting for my flight to be called, I allowed myself to exhale, finally, and then my phone buzzed. I hesitated before glancing down, expecting another pointless email or notification, but instead I saw his name, Landon. My fingers hovered over the screen for a moment. A part of me considered ignoring it entirely. But then with a quiet sigh I answered, "Mera." His voice came through the line, low and unreadable. "Where are you?" I leaned back in my seat, closing my eyes briefly. "At the airport." A pause, then, "You're really leaving?" It wasn't a question. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Another pause. Longer this time. Then quietly, almost reluctantly, "Don't go." My grip on the phone tightened slightly, but my voice remained steady. "Why?" Silence. And then, just when I thought he wouldn't answer, he exhaled sharply. "Because I don't want you to." A bitter smile touched my lips as I shook my head. "That's not a reason, Landon. It's the only one I have," he admitted, his voice quieter now. "Mera, just come back." I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply, and let it out slowly. "Goodbye, Landon." Then I hung up, silencing the past once and for all. As I turned off my phone, I felt the weight of finality settle in my chest. But it wasn't suffocating. It was freeing. No more waiting for him to see me. No more hoping for something that never existed. Landon had made his choice long ago. And now, finally, I had made mine. I wouldn't let his last-minute hesitation shake me. My flight was boarding soon, and I was ready to leave behind everything that had tied me down for so many years. But just as I stood, a commotion near the gate caught my attention. People turned, murmuring in hushed voices. And then I heard it, my name. "Mera." The voice was sharp, demanding. It cut through the noise like a blade. My stomach clenched as I turned toward the source. Landon. He stood at the edge of the waiting area, his chest rising and falling like he'd run all the way there. His eyes, dark and intense, locked onto mine with something I couldn't quite decipher, but I knew better than to let myself hope it was regret. He took a step forward, ignoring the stares, the whispers. "Don't get on that plane," he said, his voice rough. "Come home." My heart should have raced. My breath should have hitched. But there was only exhaustion, settling deep into my bones. I shook my head, gripping the handle of my suitcase tighter. "Landon, go home. You have a fiancé. You have a child on the way." His jaw clenched. "I don't care." The words hung between us, sharp and reckless. A month ago they might have shattered me. Now, they only made me tired. "Well, I do," I said firmly. "I care, and that's why I'm leaving." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration etched in every line of his body. "You're running away." I let out a bitter laugh. "I'm choosing myself, Landon. Something I should have done a long time ago." His eyes darkened. "And if I asked you to stay?" My fingers curled around the strap of my bag, nails digging into the fabric. "You don't get to ask that," I said quietly. "Not after everything." He took another step closer, conflict warring in his expression. Something raw and unspoken lingered in his gaze. "Mera." "No," I cut him off. "You don't love me, Landon. You never did. And that's okay. But you don't get to ruin my chance at starting over just because you suddenly don't want me to leave." His lips parted as if to argue, but for once he had no words. And I realized, maybe for the first time, that this was what power felt like. Not the kind that came from control or manipulation, the kind that came from finally knowing my own worth. I turned away from him, stepping toward the gate. "Mera," he called one last time, and something in his voice almost made me falter. Almost. But I didn't turn back. I handed my ticket to the attendant, walked through the gate, and boarded the plane, without looking over my shoulder. As I settled into my seat, staring out the window at the city I was leaving behind, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Maybe this was what healing looked like. Maybe this was what it meant to finally let go. And as the plane took off, carrying me toward the unknown, I didn't feel afraid. I knew one thing for certain: I was never going back. As the plane ascended, the city below shrank into a sea of lights. I exhaled slowly, pressing my forehead against the cool window. This was it, my second chance. The past was behind me, and for the first time in my life, I had the freedom to decide my own future. No more Landon. No more unrequited love. No more chains binding me to a man who had never truly seen me. The flight was long, but sleep never came. My mind replayed every moment of my past life, every mistake, every pain. But instead of regret, all I felt now was closure. I wasn't that girl anymore. I was stronger now, wiser. By the time the plane landed, a strange calm had settled over me. Canvas was different from what I was used to, busier, louder, but in a way that made me feel alive. I threw myself into my new life, immersing myself in work, meeting new people, learning how to exist without the shadow of Landon Pierce looming over me. And for a while, it worked. Months passed, and with each day, the weight of my old life grew lighter. But peace never lasts forever. It started with a phone call, an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. The moment I heard the voice on the other end, my stomach twisted. "Mera," the woman's voice was shaky, almost frantic. "It's Lydia." I hadn't heard her name in months, and yet here she was, invading my new life like a ghost from my past. "Lydia?" My voice was cautious, uncertain. "Why are you calling me?" There was a pause, then a ragged breath. "He's dead." The world tilted slightly. My grip tightened on the phone. "What?" I whispered. "Landon?" "Yes," she whispered. "He's dead, Mera." The words echoed in my mind, distant and unreal. Landon? Dead? The man who had haunted my thoughts for so long, who had once held my heart so completely, was gone. How? The word barely made it past my lips. Lydia let out a choked sob. He got into an accident, a car crash. They said he was driving too fast. He wasn't wearing his seatbelt. Silence stretched between us. Heavy, suffocating. My heart should have ached. I should have felt something other than this hollow numbness creeping through me. But all I could think about was the last time I had seen him, standing in that airport, calling my name as I walked away. "Mera!" Lydia's voice pulled me back. "He was calling someone when it happened." A pause. "It was you," she said quietly. My breath caught. "They found his phone at the scene," she explained. "The last call he made, it was to me." My fingers trembled and my throat tightened. I pulled the phone away from my ear, staring at it as if it held the answers I wasn't sure I wanted. Landon had called me. Why? What had he wanted to say? Did he regret everything? Did he finally understand? Or had it just been another cruel trick of fate? A moment of desperation before the inevitable? I closed my eyes and exhaled slowly. "Mera," Lydia's voice was softer now. "I thought you should know." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Thank you," I murmured before ending the call. The weight in my chest was unbearable. A strange mixture of grief, guilt, and relief. Landon Pierce was gone. The man who had raised me, who had loved someone else so deeply that he had destroyed me in the process, who had never once truly chosen me, was gone. And now there was nothing left. No more unfinished business, no more lingering glances, no more pain. Just silence. I stood there for a long time, staring out at the city that had become my escape, my salvation. The past was over. Landon was gone. And me? I was still here, alive, free. With a deep breath, I turned away from the window and stepped forward, leaving behind the last remnants of a life that no longer belonged to me.